everybody. It's Monday, 2 o'clock, and this is when I do bean of the week. And today's bean is green lentils. It's a lentil, not a bean, but you know, it's still in the family. So the green lentils I'm using are French green lentils from Rancho Gordo. They sent these to me in one of my bean club boxes. So I already had them, and I just needed to find a good recipe. I've made them before, so it's nothing really that new to me. I've made lots of different lentils. Hi, Claudia. So I wanted to make something that sounded seasonal and good, so I've got some ingredients here. I think you can see them. I'll move back so you can see my cutting board and my area a little bit better. In addition to the green lentils, which I've already cooked. Hello, Jenny. Hello, Evelyn. I've got the already cooked green lentils, and they look brown when they cook. You know, they don't really look all that green. They look kind of dark green in the package, but they really look more brown when they're cooked. So I made a cup of the dry lentils, and you know, it's more than I need for the recipe, but I may just use part of them and then use them for something else. So I'll go with what I said that you needed was a cup of cooked green lentils. I also have some carrots ready to grate. So we're going to be grating carrots. If you're cooking along with me, get some kind of grater. I have microplane grater. I have this kind of, you know, semi-box grater. So this works really well. So get something like that. You're going to need some parsley. So I have a nice bunch of Italian parsley, and I've already washed it. So wash your parsley and dry it. I washed it and dried it and put it back in the refrigerator, which it really is important to dry your parsley. If you don't dry it, it's hard to cut it when it's wet. It's just kind of develops this weird texture to it. So I don't recommend using wet parsley. Hi, Judy. Glad you guys are watching. And I'm going to get started with these ingredients pretty soon. I wanted to tell you a little bit about the recipe. It is a lentil salad with grated carrots and mustard dressing. I kind of go with some of the things that Rancho Gordo sends out a newsletter with their bean shipments for the bean club. And sometimes they have good recipes, you know, sometimes their recipes are just okay. This quarter, the recipes, a couple of recipes caught my eye. One was this with the French, since they sent the French lentils, they sent a lentil salad with grated carrots and mustard vinaigrette. And their vinaigrette calls for a half a cup of olive oil. No, we're not going to use olive oil anyway. But these are typical. All their recipes are heavy in oil. So I never go by their recipes. I always just kind of start with their recipe and make a bunch of changes. But I thought, I like the idea of grated carrots and lentils in kind of a salad because of spring. So this is something I think that would be good at, let's say, an Easter dinner, or you know, just a weekend, a brunch or something where you wanted a salad that had some of your lentils or beans in it, because you know, if we're following the Daily Dozen and the whole food plant-based way of eating, we're eating 3 servings of beans or lentils a day. So we've got to figure out different ways we can get them. Well, putting them in some kind of a salad is a good way to get them. So this is what we're going to do. But first, we need to grate our carrots. So we've got the lentils. So if you've already made your lentils, drain them really well. If you haven't made your lentils, just remember, before you cook them, rinse them. I put them in some kind of a strainer, like a metal mesh strainer, a cup of lentils. And I just rinsed them really well. And then I put them in my pan. I just used a little 3-quart pot today because it was a cup of lentils. It didn't really require a huge pot. And I covered the lentils with about 1.5 inches of water. I threw in a garlic clove, just a whole garlic clove to flavor it. And then I brought it to a boil, and then after about 20 minutes, the lentils were completely tender. And then I took it off the stove, and I drained them really well. I drained them in my little colander and threw away because we're not going to use the broth. And then I set them aside, and they've been sitting here. So if that's what you've got, set your lentils aside. We can measure. We'll go ahead and measure out a cup for our recipe and put it in the bowl that we're going to use. So I have like it's just a kind of a 4-cup bowl. I'm going to put my cup of lentils in here. Now that leaves me with extra lentils. So I'm going to put another 1/2 cup in here because I really don't want to have all these extra lentils. I would rather use them in my recipe and maybe just have a cup left for something else. So if you want to do that, go ahead. You don't have to use just a cup. You can use a little bit more than a cup. I'm watching the birds it's springtime. And every time I'm in here, I get so distracted because they're right here outside my window. I think those of you who follow me know what I'm talking about. My window is right here, and I've got a bunch of bird feeders and these pretty birds and cardinals, and sometimes the woodpeckers are out. So let me let Mochi and Taro welcome you as well. You know, they're full of assistance today. There's Mochi on the couch sleeping with his head buried. Taro is on his little bed. He's also sleeping, so they're not much help. Maybe if they smelled some food, they would come over here and check it out. But for right now, they're just watching. Okay, so I see a bunch of people are on. So I'm going to get started with everything. So I have about 1.5 cups of cooked lentils here. If you didn't have that much, don't worry. We can mess around with the quantities. And I see a little notification came up that my live video is enabled for stars. Don't feel obligated to send stars. It's just a way Facebook is trying to get more people to use Facebook Live. So they've added this feature where people watching can send stars and buy stars, and then it's like, you know, you're sending me money. But 1 star is a penny. So if you send 100 stars, it's like $1. So it's not like you're sending all your money to me. If you want to do that, that's fine, but please don't feel like I expect it, because I really don't. I'm always happy when people do, because, you know, I get notifications afterwards and they'll say, you received 250 stars during this broadcast. And I always have I always think, oh, that's great, but it's not necessary. Right, so I've got my carrots. See some more people, Catherine, Shirley, Christine. So I've got these carrots, and I buy the carrots. They come in a bunch, and they have all the carrot greens, the tops on them. And they're really sweet and delicious, so that's why I buy them this way. I know you can get them in the bags, and they're easy to find like that. So sometimes I get them in a bag, but a lot of times they're old and bitter. Not always, but it's happened more than once. I'm going to cut the tops off. So who wants to eat bitter carrots? Nobody I know, right? So I'm going to just use my grater, and you know, shredded carrots, grated carrots are really the best way to go with this. It's going to take me a minute to do this because my recipe calls for 2 cups. So we can talk while I'm doing this a little bit, and you can grate your carrots. I also made a grain because somebody asked me the other day if I ever made any other grains. And I started thinking, you know, I make the same thing over and over. I make a lot of brown rice. And I'm pretty stuck on brown rice, and white rice too, but usually brown rice, because I love rice. Remember, you know, I'm half Japanese. My mother was Japanese, so I love rice. And I also make grits or polenta. So I do make corn meal-ish kind of stuff, like grits are a grain, or corn is a grain. So, you know, I make corn. Sometimes I make quinoa, but I don't really love quinoa that much, I have to admit. Do I make other kinds of grains? Well, I have some millet that I use sometimes. This one big carrot didn't make quite a cup, so I'm gonna have to keep grating. I need 2 cups. So then I started thinking, well, you know, what other grains do I have? And I have some. I'm gonna start grating another carrot. I have some barley, and so I was cleaning out my freezer the other day, and I found a big glass jar of barley, wholeless barley that I hadn't used. And farro, I have made farro, but then I don't eat it. It's like I don't love it enough to eat it. So then I said, I need to challenge myself. I need to start really, you know, getting serious about variety. Okay, so that's 1 cup of grated carrots. That was about 1.5 of a good sized carrot. So I'm going to keep grating. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to challenge myself to start using some different grains and different flours, you know, spelt flour instead of only wheat flour. And so then I thought, when I'm doing my bean of the week, I'm going to start adding a grain of the week. And I'm going to make a different grain every week when I'm doing the bean, because, you know, these are things that I eat. Whatever I make in the bean of the week, I end up eating for a couple of days and then freezing. Usually this one is probably not one I'll freeze, but normally whatever we do for bean of the week. Hi, Joanne. Hi, Catherine and Irene and Mary. Nice to see you guys. But what I usually do when I make the bean of the week is I have enough beans for a few days, so that's good for me. Well, now I'm going to make the grain of the week, and then I'll have some grains to go along with my beans. So that's what I'm going to add, and that's going to challenge me to make something different. I'm not going to just make the same thing over and over. So I've got a list that I am working on, and if you have a grain that you've always wanted to try to make, but you're not really sure about how to make it, then put it in the comments and maybe I can add it to my list, because sometimes that's how I get my ideas for bean of the week. Is somebody will say, oh, I want to know how to make such and such a bean, and then I'll try to find a recipe for it, or see, you know, Rancho Gordo has a lot of recipes. I found some good ideas recently for making beans, so I have a whole list of bean of the week recipes that I'm working on. Of course, I have to change them all, because of course none of them are friendly to this way of eating. They all have lots of salt and oil, but I've got some good ones. I'll be letting you know about them. Okay, so I've got my 2 cups of carrots. I didn't bring my little scraper in, so I'm having to use my hand. But I've got my 2 cups of grated carrots, a very messy chopping board that I'm going to wipe off with a paper towel. And then we'll move on to the rest of this. And the Rancho Gordo recipe for this grated carrots and lentil type of a salad is pretty plain. It doesn't really have a lot of different ingredients or flavors, so I'm going to try to make it a little bit different. I'm going to add some things to it that Rancho Gordo's recipe doesn't have. And I like to do that because, you know, you can't always get everything from a recipe. Recipes to me are just starting points. I'm just kind of mixing up the lentils and the carrots, but it doesn't look pretty. You know, it's a nice colorful start, and I probably should have gotten a little bit bigger bowl, but that's okay. We have enough room for what we're going to put in here. But yeah, it's always a better idea to have a bigger mixing bowl to mix your food up than a tiny little bowl. So I've got my bowl of just lentils and carrots right here, and you can see my cutting board, so I'll add some other things. I'm going to make the dressing. So I have a little jar, and I'm not going to make the vinaigrette, the typical vinaigrette. I just cut the ends of the garlic off, and by ends there's a point, and then there's a real hard little end, and that's what I mean when I say cut the end off. It's the hard part. And then just kind of lean on your garlic with your knife, and then you end up with a nice garlic peel instantly, easy. And we're going to put that in our dressing. So this is going to have, first it's going to start with some chopped up garlic, and I'm going to chop it up pretty small. There's a little brown piece. I'm going to mince it with my knife. Yes, I know they have things like garlic presses and tools that you can chop up garlic, and I don't generally use those. And this looks like way more garlic than I want to put in my dressing. So I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to use about half of it, because garlic is really strong, and unless you're just the biggest garlic lover in the world, you may not want to put all this garlic in it. Now you can come back later and add more, but to start with, it's always better to me to add less and then go back and add more. So we can just set that other, so 1 clove of garlic may be enough. Now, I'm not that big on strong garlic flavors, so you might be. So for you, you might want to add more, but I started with 1 garlic clove. And then I'm gonna also put some onion, red onion in here, just a little, a couple tablespoons. We don't want to overwhelm it with onions. And I'm using a red onion. I already had one that was already started that I used for some other things. So I'm going to just cut along the lines of the onion. And it'll probably take this amount of onion that I have here. If you hear a funny sound, like a roaring sound or something like a motor, that's my dog, Mochi. He's snoring. It's like he wasn't snoring before I started this video, and then all of a sudden, there he is, snoring away. He waits until I start doing something in here, and then he starts snoring. Okay, here's our couple of tablespoons of onion, red onion, going in the jar. And these are old raspberry jam jars that I use. They come in handy. I don't have to then use something else, and they have nice little lids on them so I can store them in the refrigerator. What I buy in these is Heidi's Organic Raspberry Jam in Santa Fe, New Mexico. They have a website, Heidi's Organic Raspberry Jam, and they have their own raspberry farm, and they make the most delicious jam. And my husband always gets it whenever we go to Santa Fe, but then we always have it at home, so I use it. All right, so I told you to use some white wine vinegar, or I don't remember what I said, balsamic vinegar. It should be a white vinegar. So what I have here is I have it's white balsamic vinegar with red onion and beet juice from California Balsamic. You can see it. That just happens to be one that I like, and I tasted it. I tasted it and thought, that tastes really good. It's mild. It's not overwhelming. I'm looking for a measuring spoon. And I think it's going to be good in this recipe, so I'm going to put my couple of tablespoons in here, just 2 tablespoons. We don't want to, well, maybe 3. I'll put 3 in here. Now I had some other ones that I could have used. I could have used curry balsamic, but then I wouldn't use mustard. And this has a really good flavor. This is from California Balsamic. This alone would be good, but don't use this with mustard because curry and Dijon mustard don't go together all that well. Then they had another one called 7-herb balsamic vinegar. They sent me this because if you're a guest on Chef AJ, they send you vinegar. They sent me 2. I think they sent me this one, and they sent me garden dill mustard seed. And I thought about using this one, garden dill mustard seed, but then when I tasted it, it was so strong with dill that I thought it would overpower my salad with too much dill. So I thought, no, I don't want too much dill in here. So I'm going to put just a teaspoon of Dijon mustard. My husband bought Walmart brand. I like the Grey Poupon, but they were out of it. So I knew that was going to happen. When you open your mustard after you shake it, it kind of goes crazy. It's going to get on my clean shirt. But that's okay. Whoops. Messy. See, that's why you wear like aprons and chef coats when you're cooking so it doesn't get all over your clothes. But I just try not to wear that on Mondays just for something different. Now I gotta wash my hands. All right, so I added the teaspoon of Dijon mustard. I've got the couple tablespoons of onion, 3 tablespoons of any kind of white vinegar. It could be white wine vinegar. I've got white balsamic vinegar. Anything you like. You know, we're making this up as we go. And then the other thing that we're going to put in here, it's kind of messy looking. Get this out of here. Is I'm going to add some tahini. And this is squeezable Mighty Sesame Tahini. And the reason I'm going to add that, whoops, it'd be nice if I added it to the dressing and not to the cutting board. The reason I'm going to add that is because the original recipe calls for a half a cup of olive oil. Well, we're not going to ever put a half a cup of olive oil in anything. We're not going to put any olive oil in it. But I think the tahini kind of balances out the vinegar, even though the California balsamic vinegars are reduced and they're not so sharp, because what they've done is they've reduced them until they're mellow. So most of their vinegars don't have that real acidic, strong taste. I'm going to put a little sea salt in here, just a ground sea salt. My sleeve is coming undone, and some freshly ground pepper into my salad dressing. Try not to knock everything over. Okay, so I've got the, let me see, the mustard and the vinegar and the onions and the garlic, and it's kind of thick. It's not a very thin dressing. Should we add some water to it? Maybe a little bit. You know, maybe it needs to be thinned down. I don't want to add any more vinegar to it. So I think I'm going to add, I've never made this before. This is what I do on Mondays. I just, you know, get other people's recipes and change them and make something. And that, you know, it doesn't always work out. I added a tablespoon of water. I've made some things that didn't turn out very well on this Bean of the Week show. Okay, I'm going to taste it and see how it tastes. It's really good. I like it a lot. It's not too strong. You can definitely taste these onions. So if you don't like raw onions, then I suggest that you don't put them in there, because you will taste the raw purple onions. I happen to like raw purple onions, so I'm going to leave them in here. But not everybody loves raw onions. If you want to mellow your onions out, like let's say you don't like the taste of raw onions and you want them to be more mellow, what you can do is you can cut your onions ahead of time, and then you can soak them in vinegar, like apple cider vinegar or white vinegar, any kind of vinegar. And soaking your onions in vinegar or water will remove some of the sharpness from raw onions. And a lot of people do that, especially, that was something that they taught us in culinary school, because there was kind of this idea that if you make a salad with raw onions and the onions have that really strong, overpowering taste, it won't be good. But I think the onions I usually get here in Texas are pretty mild. They're kind of like those Georgia sweet onions or Texas sweet onions, where they don't really have that sharp bite. All right, so here's what we have so far. We've got the nice dressing with the garlic and the onion and the mustard and the balsamic vinegar. And I made a big mess here that I'm going to kind of wipe off. So we have that, and I don't feel the need to add this garlic back in, so I'm not going to. It really doesn't need it, but I do need to add my parsley. So I'm going to get that ready. So this dish is very versatile. Like I said before, I'm going to go get a fork. I forgot to bring a fork. I got it right behind me here. If you have any kind of balsamic vinegar collection like I do, because I ordered a bunch of different things from California balsamic vinegars. I ordered a lot of different vinegars from them, so I have tons of all these little jars of vinegars everywhere, and I need to start using them, and I don't always use them because I tend to make the same thing over and over, which is like, you know, my Asian dressing or whatever. So I'm going to use about 1/4 cup of fresh parsley. And I've already washed it, I've already dried it. And some things, details are important when you're cooking. So for example, and I'll taste it too. I may not use a whole 1/4 cup. There's something about parsley that is really strong. So parsley comes like this, it's organic. I washed it really well. And then when you wash parsley, put it in a big bowl, put water in it, and all the dirt and stuff will sink to the bottom. We'll then pull the parsley out. Don't drain it with the water because all the dirt, see if I can tie this with my one hand, all the dirt will then get right back on your parsley. So you're kind of defeating the purpose. This is a silly shirt. Who ever heard of such a thing? I can't tie it with my hand. I just forget it. But anyway, then, like I said earlier, you have to really dry the parsley, because if you use wet parsley, it's all kind of mushy. So I dried it really well and put it in the refrigerator, and then I can cut it. But I don't really like parsley that much. Let me see if you have any questions or anything. I see a bunch of people on here. If you have any questions, you can ask me, I'll answer. I don't really like parsley all that much. So a little goes a long way. And because I'm going to be eating this, I don't want to overwhelm it with parsley. I don't want to put, you know, the whole 1/4 of a cup of parsley in here. Because I can tell you right now, this parsley has a very strong parsley taste. And that's not my thing. I like cilantro better, but I can't put cilantro in everything. So I'll put parsley in it, but I'm only going to put a little bit. But if you like parsley, put as much as you want. You could put up to, see, and this is where I change recipes all the time. Their recipe said to use 1 cup of parsley. 1 cup, which would be like this whole bunch of parsley. And if you put 1 cup of parsley in this lentil and carrot salad, all I would taste would be parsley. I'm sorry, I'm going to put 2 tablespoons in here. All I would be tasting would be parsley, and that would not make me happy. All right, well, that kind of disappeared, so I'm going to put the rest of it in here. So I think you could get away with 1/4 of a cup of parsley, unless you're the world's biggest parsley lover. If you are, and you love parsley with your food, put more in. But trust me on this. Taste the parsley first and decide if you really like it. If you taste it and you say, ah, it's really strong, don't put it in there. Okay, I'm going to taste this. I like it. It's very fresh. The carrots, watch out. The carrots are sweet. It does need some freshly ground pepper. Now my inclination is always to make things spicy, even if it doesn't go with the food. Oh, I know that little freshly ground sea salt and pepper will make this better. So what I would probably do, good or bad, is add something spicy to it. So I have a couple of options. I have this, I order these spices from Fresh Jack's, and I have one called Vamp Pepper. It's got garlic and black pepper, and it's a little spicy. Then I have peppered habanero, which has a lot of habanero pepper in it. I think I'll use that. Let me taste it. Again, I think that would be good. Before you put stuff in your food, make sure you taste it so that you know you like it. Because food can be ruined by putting somebody else's interpretation of the right spice. Okay, this is red chili flakes. I won't put this in because I put the habanero seasoning. But that's what I would probably put in. All right, so now I've got my little hot pepper stuff in here, a little extra sea salt, a little extra pepper. I'm going to put my fork back in here. Nobody is going to eat this but me. My husband won't touch this. He does not like lentils. Perfect. Whew. Man, that stuff is spicy. Oh my goodness. Peppered habanero will get you. Oh, gotta have some tea. I was not expecting that pepper to be so hot, you guys. All right, so now let me tell you a little bit about my grain. If I can quit making a big mess here. I have this 7-grain blend, 7 grains mix by Nishiki. I bought this on Amazon, but I've seen it at the Asian store too. And I bought it to make porridge cereal, but I don't make a lot of cereal, you know, all the time. So I had this in my pantry. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna start making more grains. This one has brown rice, quinoa, sweet brown rice, black rice, red rice, millet, and buckwheat groats. So it has a really good combination of grains. So what I did was I made a combination of, can't really see it that well, but it's a combination of this grain mix, which has all these little particles of different grains in here. I'll get a better view of it so you can see it. So it has the red rice and the brown rice and the millet and the groats and all these beautiful grains. And I've tasted it, it was so good. But what I also did was I have a lot of Japanese rice, you guys, because, you know, I buy these 15-pound bags and I use them for different projects, you know, cooking classes and things. Had a big Korean cooking class, and anyway, I had this gigantic bag of Japanese white rice. So I thought, okay, what I'll do is I will mix my grain mix with some white rice. So I had a cup of this multigrain mix and a half a cup of my white Japanese sticky rice. I have a Japanese rice cooker. You can see it here. I love this rice cooker. I think it's in my Amazon store. I have 2 of these. They're 10 cup because I have made great big huge meals for big groups of people. And rice comes out perfect in this. But I put a cup and a half, it was a cup of the multigrain rice and a half a cup of Japanese rice. And then I put about 2.5 cups of water in there. And then I just cooked it in the rice cooker and it came out great. It came out, you know, like Japanese rice. It's kind of sticky. So, you know, Japanese rice is sticky. So that made the grain part kind of sticky too. Now, is that a problem? Not for me, because I'm a Japanese rice lover. So I don't mind if it's a little sticky. And it has a really good flavor. The red rice makes it kind of pinkish. It made it really festive looking. I really like that about this. So what I would do, this is going to be my lunch. It's kind of late for lunch, but this is not a big portion of food, so I'll go ahead and eat it. I will eat some of my beautiful lentil and carrot salad that has the mustard vinaigrette flavor. And it looks really nice on the plate just like that. But what I would also do then is I like to add a little green on top. If you look at my food, you'll always see that there's some kind of herb or something on top, just because that makes it look really fresh. And it's gonna be spring. It was spring forward. And it's, you know, St. Patrick's Day this week. And, you know, it's kind of that time of year. So I put a little parsley on here. And also, I would also add, for my meal, some greens. So I made these greens this morning. These are like my breakfast greens. They're all the super greens. They have Swiss chard, spinach, kale, all the baby kind of stuff. And I really like to have these greens. I'll kind of cut them smaller. I think the greens would taste really good on my plate next to this food, but you could also take these cooked greens and mix them with your lentil and carrots if you wanted to. I do that a lot because this morning I cooked a great big box of greens, and this was what was left after my breakfast. But then the rest of the day I can take these greens, chop them up, and put them in other food, and that's what I do. So then what I have here is I have my beautiful lentil and carrot salad with my multigrain rice mix, which is very tasty, and some fresh bright greens. And that's a nice light lunch. Or if you were taking a salad to an event and you were bringing a side dish, this lentil and carrot salad would be a really nice dish to bring somewhere. Don't say anything about it, just bring it. And I think people would like it. I think it tastes great, especially with that habanero pepper on it. Try not to do what I do and choke yourself with it. I'm gonna move this up so I can see your questions. Okay, anybody have any questions? Do you think you'll make this carrot lentil salad, or has anybody made it while you were watching? If you have, let me know. If not, make it later. Let's see, Karen and Kelly, Mary Riley. So I want to thank you all for attending. And today we did make the carrot and lentil salad with the mustard. I don't want to call it vinaigrette because that makes it sound like oil, so I call it mustard dressing with our 7-grain multigrain blend mixed with a little Japanese rice and then some greens. And this is a delicious, to me it's a delicious meal. That's the things I like to eat with the Daily Dozen, eating plenty of greens, grains, and lentils or beans. No oil, lots of good flavors from fresh herbs like the parsley. Adding in some onions, carrots are really a seasonal vegetable right now. So this is the way I like to eat. It tastes good. It's not it's not a hodgepodge of a lot of different foods. I guess what I like to do is to make recipes or things that are, I call it a unified dish. Like it's a recipe for something that's pretty simple, lentils and carrots. And then I like to eat that with another dish like grains, and then something else that's a simple thing like greens. So then my meal has components of different things, and I like that. There are lots of plant-based people that eat what I call hodgepodge style. And hodgepodge style, excuse me, I need to get something real quick. And that style is to, instead of eating the components like this, that would be to take, rice and then cover it with the lentils and then add some greens and mix it all together and then throw on some other things on top of that and just keep adding stuff until you have a giant bowl of food. And then it's all whole food plant-based, so it's like a bowl. Well, that's not my thing, so I like to eat like this better. So if you want to cook like this, every week I do Bean of the Week at 2 o'clock, unless something happens and I can't be here, but I'm usually here. I'm gonna start adding a grain component, and then I post these on my YouTube channel because that way they're easier to find. So I'm putting all the weekly Bean of the Week videos on my YouTube channel so that they're easy to find. So please check there, and I'll put the full recipe for today's lentil and carrot salad, which, by the way, is absolutely delicious. I hesitate to take another bite because the last bite I took had pepper on it, but I'm going to try again. Good, that one didn't have the pepper on it. It's absolutely scrumptious, very fresh, bright, with the mustard and I used the ruby red onion balsamic, and it gave it a really good, nice flavor. So very good dish. You could use any kind of lentils that you have. If you have black lentils, brown lentils, green lentils, it doesn't matter. Any lentils will work except for red lentils because red lentils will cook to be too soft. So I hope you make this dish. I don't see any questions, so I'm going to end the video. And I'll see you back here on Friday for the Friday recap. I usually come on about 3 o'clock to go over what's going on for the people that are following the 21-day challenge. So if you're following the 21-day challenge, we're on day 8. We're in the 2nd week. And if you've been eating the whole food plant-based way, following the Daily Dozen, eating your beans and grains and greens, I see Pam Belnofsky is on, then this is a perfect meal for people following the 21-day challenge. no oil, very filling, lots of vegetables, nice serving of grains. But on Friday, we talk about the 21-day challenge and kind of go over what's been going on during the week, any comments people have. I kind of share ups and downs, things that are working well, things that are not working well, and that's on every Friday. So I'll see you then. On Wednesday, I'll be doing a YouTube video. This YouTube video this Wednesday is going to be making the oatmeal nut butter balls. I know you guys have already got that recipe. So the reason I'm doing it on YouTube is because it's not on there, and I get requests all the time for that recipe, and it's on TikTok. Well, if you know anything about TikTok, TikTok is only 1 minute, so you can't put a lot of detail in there, and there's not enough information, and people keep saying, well, what happens if this happens, and how do you do this part? And so I thought, okay, I'm gonna just make a new video of the oatmeal nut butter balls with new things I've learned and put it on YouTube so it's there and people can find it. So that's what I'm doing on Wednesday. So I hope you make the lentil, green French lentil salad with carrots and mustard dressing, the grain mix, and of course always have greens, and enjoy this dish. And as soon as I stop this, while I go in and put the recipe here on Facebook, I'm going to eat this and I'm going to enjoy it because it smells delicious. So I'll see you all, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.